recording. So last week we read through most of an article on angels in Judaism. And I can't remember who, maybe it was Bryce that mentioned the song Teen Angel.
Somebody mentioned.
Yeah, so about 10 minutes ago, I went online and looked for songs with angels in the title. So I was fascinated by two things. The first site had 110 songs with angels in the title, which I found kind of interesting. But what I found really appalling is I only had heard of about 10 of them because I haven't really paid that much attention to music in the last, 30 years or so.
Who's saying you are my special angel?
I didn't have the one. So that's what I was going to ask. So yeah, we're not going to ask people to sing it. In fact, we may even specifically ask people not to sing it, these songs. But I'm curious. So that's not one that I noticed. I'm curious if you can name angel songs
besides Shalom Aleichem.
Well, yeah, okay, that wasn't a pop song. Okay, yeah,
Jerry, it's Bobby Vinton.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, yeah. And Bryce, we're reviewing, and Jerry Kirschman, who's joined the last couple of minutes, we're reviewing songs with angels in the title. Yeah. So somebody mentioned Teen Angel. And the other thing which was interesting, and we started talking about this last week, what is the implication of the use of angel in those songs? So, I mean, and I think it's, well, of course, I think everything's interesting, but I do think particularly Teen Angel was interesting because there was sort of this image that the dead person now is in heaven as an angel. And so the guy who I guess lost her boyfriend is hoping, he said, I think he said like he has to be good. So he'll see her again when he dies. Which I think raises, again, I'm probably overly thinking this theologically, because while I am very familiar, certainly with the Jewish concepts of your soul going to heaven, I've never heard it described as an angel. Although I think in popular culture, we hear a lot of that. So go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, Shelley Fabre sang Johnny Angel.
Oh, that's right. I forget. I missed that one. Now, presumably that was just his last name, but I don't think it's a coincidence. Okay. Any other angel songs you can think of? Bryce?
Well,
hold on. So Bryce and then Stephen.
It's not so much an angel song, so much as just this idea that someone, I think it's really related to the idea that someone just loves so much and thinks that they are perfect. You see, there's a concept that people say, oh my gosh, you're so perfect. Okay. And it's not rational. It's all part of the heart. It's the love hormones going. Mm-hmm. And, if they're perceived as perfect, if they're suddenly taken young and innocent, then you just have this idea that they just go to heaven and that their spirit is not dirty in any way and would just go straight, no need for checking or anything.
Yeah, I don't know that people are thinking about it theologically, but I get your point.
No, I mean it's intuitive. It's not theological. It's completely intuitive, and it's just it takes ideas from their religious zeitgeist, and they take them like many people do and impress their own ideas upon them and loft them into song heaven.
Yep. Okay. Other folks want to mention angel songs? Stephen?
In the Back to the Future movies, there's a song that I don't know the title, but the lyrics are Earth Angel, Earth Angel. Won't
yeah, Earth Angel. Yep, Earth Angel. Yep, that is the title. Yes. And that's the genre that I remember music from. Anybody else want to chime in? I'll mention a few more and then we'll get into our text.
Undercover Angel?
No, I saw that, but I have no idea what that song is.
And Bruce Springsteen did Angel Eyes.
Angel Eyes? Yep. Angel Eyes I heard of. So, so as I mentioned, the first website had 110 songs. So here are the ones. I I don't know if we've just might put Angel of the Morning. We mentioned Teen Angel, Angel Baby, that one I heard of. Angel in Disguise, I heard of. Fools Rush In, where angels, I think, fear to tread.
Right.
And Hark the Herald Angels Sings. That one at least is identifiably religious. And did somebody mention Pretty Little Angel Eyes?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Okay. So any other thoughts on angels before we dive in? And we will conclude the session with the song about the four, I guess there might be archangels. I'm not sure if they're technically archangels, four angels surrounding God.
If Angeles is Spanish for angels, then isn't Los Angeles Angels redundant?
Los Angeles, yes. Because Los Angeles is called the city of the angels. Yes. Yep.
That's good.
It's like pizza pie that we have the word repeated in two different languages.
Or Good Yontif, because Yontif is a Yiddish pronunciation of Yom Tov. Yom is day and Tov is good. So Good Yontif is good. Good day.
Good.
Yes.
Very, very good day.
And
holiday.
from my history, it's people saying things like, "Hey, we got to go meet at the El Torito." And the El Torito,
Yes.
El means the.
Yes,
so it's
that
the
is true.
bull, the little bull.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Okay. So on that happy note, I am going to make sure I have the sound on, and I'm going to share a screen, and based on the way the computer's reacting, I think it's working. So we finished most of this article. It's only a 3-page article. I'll just refresh your memory. This is from My Jewish Learning. Do Jews believe in angels? We talked about angels in the Bible. In early rabbinic literature, Maimonides' angelic hierarchy. And so I think there's only one section left. We'll take a look at the Wikipedia article. There's some interesting things in the Wikipedia article. But so someone want to read Angels in Kabbalah? Go ahead, Ken.
Angels in Kabbalah. The Jewish mystical tradition expounds even further on the nature of angels. Kabbalistic sources portray angels as forces of spiritual energy. Rabbi David Cooper, who has written extensively about Kabbalah and Jewish meditation, has described angels as invisible metaphysical energy bundles that act like magnets, causing physical changes by means of forces that are invisible to the eye. In Kabbalah, angels reside in the worlds of Beriah, creation, and Yitzhara, formation, or Yetzirah, the middle two of Kabbalah's 4 worlds, which represents the spiritual stages through which divine energy is conducted down to the material world. In his classic work on Kabbalah, The 13-Petaled Rose, Rabbi Aidan Steinsaltz writes that human behavior can create angels in a counterpart to the way biblical angels bear messages from the divine realm down to humanity. The angels created by human actions carry the energies of humankind upwards into the higher spiritual realms.
Okay, let's pause a moment. Bryce.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make life difficult for you, Rabbi, but and this is just, people keep using this word energy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean anything, because we know what energy is, and spiritual energy wouldn't be energy. It would just be some spiritual essence. But just stop using the word energy.
Okay, I think I understand where you're coming from, and as a physicist, I have no small amount of empathy for that. But don't waste your energy, Bryce. It's not gonna stop, because there is in our world and in English usage, people talk about energy to mean things other than the ability to provide heat and to do work. That's exactly right. But I must admit, You know, it often when I get into a discussion of spiritual energy, but people will say he has a good energy about him, and but I think what they really mean is the sense that energy, you know, in many ways can't be seen but has real action in the world. So I think one of the things that's going on, actually, let's finish reading the article, and then we can discuss why that language is used to describe these phenomena. Ken, you want to continue?
Angels are singular and unchanging in their essences, Steinsaltz writes, and can be either good or evil, demons, the latter the product of human beings doing the opposite of a mitzvah, harboring evil thoughts or committing acts of wickedness. Like good angels, evil angels also act in a dual fashion, bringing evil from the spiritual to the material world by inspiring sin or causing suffering and punishment, while also receiving energy from the misdeeds of human beings. To be sure, were the world to root out all evil completely, then as a matter of course, the subversive angels would disappear, since they exist as permanent parasites living on man, Steinsaltz writes. But as long as man chooses evil, he supports and nurtures whole worlds and mansions of evil, all of them drawing upon the same human sickness of soul.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think what's going on here is clearly, you know, myth and parables and ways of trying to explain things that are difficult to concretize because they are not concrete in their essence. Alan.
And
then Jerry.
Steinsaltz have a source for this, or this is his perception of this?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, Steinsaltz is brilliant. I actually met him.
I know that, but this is having an evil angel seems like obviously an oxymoron, but to me,
that's exactly the point. And I think in the Wikipedia article, certainly, you know, not biblically, but in rabbinic teaching, there are discussions of fallen angels, even though it sounds Christian to us, and evil angels. And so, if I had to guess, I would guess this is Talmudic.
Yeah, that's right.
But so Jerry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that so Alan raised a great point. But whenever you see Steinsaltz, the guy's, you know, he's an encyclopedia himself. So, you know, this is right. He's drawing from Talmud. There may be some midrash, but it could be midrash based on Talmud. But for the most part, it's probably Talmudic, you know, and some other stuff a little later on. But you know, if you talk about Steinsaltz, it's not so much myth; it's more based on Talmud. Now, it depends on what you want to call Talmud.
Yeah. So what I was really thinking of, the idea, what I think is going on with the discussion of angels is trying to personify or maybe anthropomorphize communications between worlds. And I think I've seen in this article and other articles the idea that when we pray, we create angels that carry our prayers to heaven, and that God communicates through us through angels. You know, as we heard before, we're going to see more in the Wikipedia article that the Hebrew word angel means messenger. I have this this little magnet that I never keep too far away from me. It says, every blade, it's hard for me to read because it's in mirror script. Every blade of grass has an angel that bends over it and whispers, grow, grow. And it quotes the Talmud. I actually researched this. I don't actually think this is in the Talmud. I think it's in a commentary on the Talmud. But it's sort of a sweet idea that God is so concerned with the world that God sends individual angels over every blade of grass. And I think it's a poetic way of expressing God's relationship with everything in the world.
Yeah, I mean, that effectively might be a little distracting right now. But look, I mean, and I don't know if you're going to get into this in a minute, but just two quick comments. You know, the angels, as you call messengers, but like, if you look at the ancient origins of this stuff, you know, everyone would know that in ancient times that God would have servants, right? All God said servants, and you know, here, you know, we're talking about them being angels or like beings that would do God's will. Now, The interesting thing about it is they seem to have their own little mini wills that they can do things, maybe not exactly, they're not just, a pure extension, but they have a little bit of independence depending on the context. And by the way, the second comment was, this is going to sound backward, but by invoking myth, maybe putting too much importance on their individual actions. The individual actions may be related almost to human action, as a reflection of human action, and not necessarily pure agenda from, say, heaven.
Okay, I accept that. Bryce?
Why is
Stephen, hold on, Bryce. Go ahead, Stephen.
Why is Mirror script difficult for you to read when since from reading Hebrew all the time, you should be used to it?
That's true. That's true. I'm dyslexic in mirror image English. Bryce.
Yeah. So what really seems odd and not even disconcerting, but like disconnected from logic to me, is this idea that when someone does something bad, it creates a sentient being with evil inclination, an independent sentient being. And that to me is, I can't encompass the idea that every time somebody does something bad, sentient beings are created with evil inclinations. It's
right.
It's topsy-turvy.
Yeah, I understand that you can't accept that. What
and
I would say
can't
is
understand the motivation of it, and I think it's ridiculous.
What I think it is, I think it's a poetic description. And I often say, if someone writes, or I write a poem saying my love is a red, red rose, I don't mean that Sonia has thorns and pollen and so on. So I think I think it's expressing a poetic idea. I think Kabbalah is a lot like that. I have asked Kabbalists, and they take much of this literally, and I definitely I can't understand what they take literally, but that's that's a limitation on my imagination and my being so left brain and tied to the concrete. So I am willing to be open to that. Okay.
I don't think that's a limitation. Looking at the world around us and seeing how people behave with disconnection from reality, I think being connected to reality is a good thing.
I understand that very well.
And Rabbi, you do understand and think and react metaphorically all the time. So you have a strong right and left brain.
There's actually a very interesting idea. I was thinking about this before we got on. There's a concept that I first heard this from Neil Gaiman. I always look at where Neil Gaiman's books are up there. Neil Gaiman was, after Heschel died, Neil Gaiman was one of Heschel's major students and was the chief theologian of the conservative movement for quite some time. And he mentioned an idea in one of his books that he called second naivete, which I think is an interesting idea. If you take kind of a children's Sunday school view of Bible and Bible stories, we recognize that they are naive. And we don't get into the problems that I think, as you know, I love to get into, problems of the text and so on. And then we become more sophisticated and we study these things, and we study, all the things that we love to study. And what Gaiman talks about, and he is a sophisticated theological thinker, believe me, he says there is some beauty in trying to recapture that naive sense of awe, in the sense of God and caring and so on. And it is work for me to stay open to those ideas, but I do stay open to those ideas. So I am going to go to this Wikipedia article. We are definitely not going to read the whole thing, and I need to do a screen share. Okay, can you see it okay? Yes, I think so. Okay, so yeah, there's just some interesting information in some detail that we hadn't come across before. I think I'm going to read this because it gets into some of the Hebrew issues. So in Judaism, angels, Hebrew malach, is a literally messenger, plural malachim, are supernatural beings that appear throughout the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, rabbinic literature, apocrypha and pseudepigrapha, and traditional Jewish liturgy as agents of the God of Israel. They are categorized in different hierarchies. Their essence is often associated with fire. The Talmud describes their very essence as fire. And one of the nice things is, I love that this is pretty well annotated. So if you wanted to look for sources, it's helpful. Etymology. Hebrew malach is the standard word for messenger, both human and divine. In the Hebrew Bible, it's also related to the words for angel in Arabic, which I'm going to guess is malak, Aramaic and Ethiopic. It is rarely used for human messengers in modern Hebrew, as the latter is denoted by the term shaliach, a term that you may have heard. The noun, a shaliach is an emissary. So someone comes from Israel as a scout leader and does Jewish music, they're called a shaliach. You may have heard the term connected with Chabad. Chabad sends rabbis to many, many far-flung communities, and they are called shaliach of the Rebbe. And interestingly, I'm always interested in translation issues. The word apostle, which comes from a Greek word, apostolos, I think, is the Greek word that shaliach translates from in Hebrew. So and it makes perfect sense that the apostles were Jesus's messengers that were going out spreading that word. In biblical Hebrew, this is interesting to me. Okay, so I don't know. I finished. The noun derives from the verbal I can't say the word.
Consonantal root.
Consonantal root lamed aleph chaf, meaning specifically to send with a message, and with time was substituted to more applicable shaliach. So, for example, when God tells Moses, or Moses is quoting God to Pharaoh, "Let my people go," the Hebrew is actually shaliach et ami, send forth my people. In biblical Hebrew, this root is attested only in this noun, and in the noun malacha, meaning work, occupation, or craftsmanship. And that the word malacha is associated with the forbidden work that's to be done on Shabbat. This really interested me. The morphological structure of the word malach suggests that it is the maktal form of the root, denoting the tool or means for performing it. I actually looked online. I'm sure, Cheryl, you would do a better job of this than I. But for the Hebrew grammar relating to the maktal form. So in Hebrew, there are different forms. My native Hebrew speaker isn't with us this evening. And I think what's going on with the maktal form is it translates a verb form into a noun. So for example, the verb to command is tzav. There's even a Torah portion named tzav. And so when we make a noun of it, we put a mem on the front of it, and we get the word mitzvah. And actually, the name of the religion, that the Prophet Muhammad speaks of is called Islam, but someone who practices it is a Muslim. I'm sure it's the same grammatical form. So I found that very interesting, but I couldn't find more about it. The term malach, therefore, simply means one who is sent, often translated as messenger when applied to humans. For instance, malach is the root of the name of the prophet Malachi, whose name means my messenger. In modern Hebrew, malach is the general word for angel. Would someone like to read in the Tanakh, Hebrew biblical text?
Sure.
Thank you.
In the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible reports that angels appeared to each of the patriarchs, to Moses, Joshua, and numerous other figures. They appeared to Hagar in Genesis 16:9, to Lot in Genesis 19:1, and to Abraham in Genesis 22:11. They ascend and descend Jacob's ladder in Genesis 28:12 and appear to Jacob again in Genesis 31:11-13. God promises to send one to Moses in Exodus 33:2 and sends one to stand in the way of Balaam in Numbers 22:31.
Everybody remember that? And Balaam
Yep.
had this talking
Yep.
donkey.
Donkey, yes.
Who can see it? Yeah. That's
Isaiah speaks of, you can say it,
Malach Panav.
the angel of the presence. In all their affliction, he was afflicted, and the angel of his presence saved them. In his love and his pity, he redeemed them, and he bore them and carried them all the days of old.
And it's interesting to me with the Hebrew, Panav means face. So Malach Panav literally means the angel of his face. It's a little more personal than just presence is a sort of a more distant idea, at least in English. Okay.
The book of Psalms says, "For he will give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways." Psalms 91:11.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I can't remember if this article gets into it, but in reading some of the material on angels, in a lot of cases, I think it does get into it. When a person encounters an angel in the Bible, they don't realize that the entity is an angel. I mean, this is actually very clear in announcing the birth of Samson, where an angel appears and they just think it's some guy. And also in the stories, when the three angels come, or the angel come to announce the birth of Isaac, the story begins that saying just three men came. And then it turns out that they're angels, and it turns out that they're God. So in the Bible, at least, we have these angels morphing from men to God, but it's clear that from the Bible, they are sort of biblical. They are vehicles by which God and humanity interact. Let's see.
The angel of the Lord and the origins of angels. The figure of the angel of the Lord has been perceived by generations of exegetes and interpreters as obscure and perplexing. Almost every appearance of this figure in the Hebrew Bible complies to the following pattern. The narration introduces the angel of the Lord.
And the angel of the Lord is Malach Adonai, Malach Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in the Hebrew.
He behaves as if he were a deity, e.g. promising fertility, Genesis 21:18, annihilating an army with a single blow, e.g. 2 Kings 19:32-36, or merely delivering a speech in which the angel presents himself as God, e.g. Exodus 3:2-4. The interlocutors of this figure address and revere him in a way reserved exclusively to a deity. As such, the incident leaves the reader with the question whether it was an angel or the deity who had just appeared.
Yeah, there's a classic one when the angel stops Abraham from slaying his son. The text reads that an angel of the Lord appeared and called out to Abraham, and then the angel is talking to Abraham, and it's clear at one point that the angel is speaking as if the angel was God. And
yeah, it's God's voice, yes.
It says, because you have not withheld, from me. Yes. And so it is a little puzzling.
Well, maybe these messengers are just around and God can project his presence into any one of them. Maybe he's got the tech.
Yeah, well, I mean, even in modern terms, if I get a text from my wife, I understand it as coming from my wife. I don't belabor the fact that it's going, through the internet and so on. So so I think that's the same idea. Yeah, there's a nice story coming up here. So let's have angels and healing from impurity.
Angels and healing from impurity. There are instances in the Bible where angels have the ability to heal an individual from impurity. However, the question may arise whether the seraphim are angels. For example, in the book of Isaiah, Isaiah sees seraphim praising the Lord. Their voices were so powerful that they make the pivots on the thresholds shake and filled the temple with smoke. Book of Isaiah 6:3-4. All of this power made Isaiah feel unworthy and unclean, so he cried out, "Woe is me, I am lost, for I am a man of impure lips, and I live among a people of impure lips. Yet my own eyes have beheld the sovereign Lord of hosts." Then one of the seraphs, who had taken a live coal from the altar with a pair of tongs, flew over to me, touched it to my lips, and declared, "Now that this has touched your lips, your guilt shall depart, and your sin be purged away."
And I'm pretty sure this is the section where Isaiah has this vision of seraphs surrounding the throne of God. And the quote is, he hears the seraphs calling to one another, "Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh, Adonai Tzvaot, Malok Kol Haaretz Kevodo." Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. I can say it in Hebrew. I can't remember the translation. And that's, of course, it's actually in the morning and afternoon, Kedusha. And we go up on our toes every time we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. And the explanation I was given to understand was we're trying to get up there with the seraphim. And seraph in Hebrew means to burn. So seraphim are kind of flaming celestial figures.
Made of fire. Made of fire.
Yep.
I don't know. If you touch coal to your lips, you're going to get a nice blister.
Yes, but it won't be impure until it gets infected.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to move down a little bit.
It did it in Moses' case.
So there's a midrash about Moses that some of Pharaoh's fortune teller magicians predicted that Moses, who of course was found by Pharaoh's daughter and brought into the palace, that Moses was going to be a troublemaker and maybe even, a leader of a rebellion. And so the midrash goes that they put a test to Moses, and they put in front of I don't know if it's a baby Moses, but certainly toddler Moses, a bunch of coals, glowing coals, and gold and silver, with the prediction that if Moses reaches for the gold and silver, he will be, he's motivated by greed and he'll be a troublemaker. Whereas if he reaches for the coals, then he's okay. And the story goes that Moses was reaching for the gold and silver, and then I guess an angel, but we'd have to take a look at the text, shoved Moses's hand over. Moses touched the hot coals, brought his hands to his mouth because he had burned his hand, and that's why Moses had the speech impediment. So that's kind of classic midrash. It's classic midrash because the Bible says Moses had a speech impediment. So the rabbis are going to dream up stories about how that speech impediment came to be.
And the speech impediment could only have arisen because of Moses' holiness.
No, in fact, it's just the opposite. Moses was reaching for the gold.
Well, he was made holy by the angel himself.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
No,
Again, I think you take the stories too literally.
I think part of the story is that the coal was shiny because it was so hot.
Yes.
And so a person of normal intelligence for that age would reach for it. But Moses was so smart that he could tell the gold and silver was more valuable, even though it wasn't any shinier.
And wouldn't burn him.
Yeah, and I've never heard that interpretation, but I must admit I haven't studied that midrash carefully. I'm going to slide down because this is a long article. Let's read this.
This might not be an official interpretation. This is something I think I was about 8 when I learned, so it's possible it's just made up.
Yep. And it's as good as any. So the idea of midrash is you start with Bible, and then you derive new and interesting insights but to be authentic midrash, it means you're drawing out from the text. And
Mhm.
even Midrash doesn't claim that it is the only answer, because you're going to find lots of different Midrashim, and they don't necessarily agree with one another. But it's exactly what we do when we read. We sit around, on Saturday mornings or even in this class, and we read some text and we come up with different interpretations. So this is an interesting discussion, and we're going to hear a song about Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. So, Bryce, would you like to continue with in
Sure.
rabbinic literature?
As a subcategory of heavenly beings, Malachim occupy the 6th rank of 10 in Maimonides' Jewish angelic hierarchy.
I don't remember if I went. Yeah, okay. So Maimonides
this.
has. We looked at this last week just to illustrate how complex it is. Okay.
Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. Sorry for not pronouncing them properly.
That's okay.
The Talmud names 4 angels who would later be known as archangels surrounding God's throne. Or is it archangels or archangels?
I would think archangels, but I'm not sure.
Well,
tomato.
Yeah. Potato. As the Holy One blessed be, he created 4 winds, directions, and 4 banners for Israel's army. So also did he make 4 angels to surround his throne, Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. Michael is on its right, corresponding to the tribe of Reuben. Uriel on its left, corresponding to the tribe of Dan, which was located in the north. Gabriel in front, corresponding to the tribe of Judah, as well as Moses and Aaron, who were in the east, and Raphael in the rear, corresponding to the tribe of Ephraim, which was in the west.
Yeah, and as I mentioned last time, Michael means who is like God, like we have Michamocha, who is like you, a God. Gabriel has the root Gibor, second blessing of the Amidah, Ata Gibor. Ata Gibor Leolam Maronai may sound familiar. And Gibor means strength. So the strength of God. Uriel, or is light, so the light of God. And Raphael, we talk about people wishing people a refuah shlema. So refuah is healing. So Raphael is the healing of God. And we're going to hear a beautiful musical rendition of this as we close this evening.
Affinities between angels and sages in the rabbinic literature. The Babylonian Talmud contains a reworked ancient tradition of the myth of the fallen angels. Here, this narrative is invested with new significance, and accordingly, these are the distinguished rabbis who are portrayed as the heavenly messenger's offspring. The most explicit presentation of this notion is found in Bashab.
No. So this is Babylonian Talmud, Shabbat, page 112b.
Okay. And how do you pronounce that word?
It's not a word. It's a
okay.
All
right. It's a code. It's code.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
The text recounts the sages' halakhic discussion in which Rabbi Hizkiah praises Rabbi Yohanan's competencies by exclaiming, "This is not a human." Right after his remark, a following passage appears. Rabbi Zaira said that Rava bar Zimuna said, "If the early generations are characterized as sons of angels, we are the sons of men. And if the early generations are characterized as the sons of men, we are akin to donkeys. And I do not mean that we are akin to either the donkey of Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa or the donkey of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, who were both extraordinarily intelligent donkeys. Rather, we are akin to other typical donkeys."
I don't know what this has to do with fallen angels, but it's kind of fun. There is a rabbinic concept that the closer you get to Sinai, the more spiritually brilliant you are. So this is a way of saying, look, we can read the text and come up with interesting insights, but we don't compare our insights and our purity and so on with those that were actually at Sinai or living like the rabbis of, the Talmudic era, living closer to the time of Sinai. I'm trying to see if there's anything really dwelling on here. So we saw that there's different hierarchies, and so the Malachim are in the middle here. The Chayot HaKodesh, I think these are, this is cool. Living creatures, living beings, or Chayot. Chayot comes from the word Chai, something that's alive. A living creature is a Chaya. Are a class of heavenly beings in Jewish mythology. They are described in the prophet Ezekiel's vision of the heavenly chariot in the 1st and 10th chapters of Ezekiel. Oh, and it looks like there's more. So I'm just the Orphanim, alternately Ophanim. Yeah, okay, yes. With different spellings, and sometimes called Galgalim. Galgal refers to a wheel. Again, refer to the wheel seen in Ezekiel's vision. Let's see. Erelim, a class of angels whose existence is derived from Isaiah. Let's just see. Hamshalim. Okay, just other ones. Seraphim. I think they are flaming, unless I'm mistaken. We talk about Malachim. Elohim. So this is kind of interesting. The plural of Eloha is a Hebrew word meaning gods or godhood. Although the word is plural, in the Hebrew Bible, it most often takes singular verbal or pronomial agreement and refers to a single deity, particularly the God of Israel. Whoops, I lost it. I'm trying to see if I can see.
You have to go to that.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. It's just going to take me to a different article. Yeah, okay. So the word Elohim is a plural word. It ends in im, but the verbs associated with it, particularly in the first line of the Bible, Bereshit bara Elohim. Elohim created. If Elohim was really being treated as a plural, it would be baru Elohim, not bara Elohim. So B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, we've seen that in a couple of different places, including the book of Job. Cherubim, we've met them. Unearthly beings. Sorry?
How can there be a plural of God when we believe?
Yes. So the interesting thing is my understanding, and I will defer to Jerry Kirschman on this, is that this comes from a time that the writers were heavily influenced by polygamy, and so the word they gave to the deity was had a plural structure to it. But we understand that it's singular, and you can tell it's singular because of the verbs and the adjectives associated with it. And just to make your life
easier. Did you say polygamy?
Yes. No, I didn't mean polygamy.
Multiple marriages?
Polytheism. No, polytheism. Polytheism. Yes. Yeah, I had the right parrot, but the wrong.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. So Jerry, is that you have something to add to that?
No, that's fine. I mean, it just it's like, let's just call it in later times the honorable or the honorific way of referring to God.
Yeah, and I think it's an anachronism. I think it's just that term was used, so the Bible just picks up on it. And to make life even more confusing, the word Adonai, which is the word that we say when we come to Yud He Vav He in prayer and text, and we always understand it as meaning my Lord, is also in the plural. The singular, my Lord, would be Adoni. Adonai would be my Lord's plural.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to finish this. So we have the cherubim. We've talked about them. And the Ishim, that sounds like the lowest tier of angels. These, right, Maimonides, the angels which speak to the prophets and appear in their vision. They are called men. So the Hebrew word for man is Ish, and Ishim would be just the plural, because their tier is almost within the reach of the human mind.
Almost.
Almost right. Bryce, and then Alan.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the process involved, and here's what I realize that all of the, like, Maimonides and the Zohar and all of these different constructions are all taken from various references in the holy writings. okay,
Yes.
and references to various beings, and apparently various rabbis and other very studious people involved here have ranked it and built this whole categorization. And I'm wondering, is there any idea that this is somehow more than an invention of the mind of the rabbis pulling from the Torah, or is there some thought that there is inspiration that connects this to something other than what is in the rabbi's mind?
Yeah, so I think it's both, because the rabbis would argue that they're relying on texts. But notice in the Zohar, Malachim are first, whereas here they're number 6.
Yeah,
And
one
I
wonders.
I'm sorry?
One wonders.
Yes. So in the Zohar, it's a different set of texts. Actually, it's interesting. It's apparently presented, it says Exodus 43a. The Zohar is structured as a commentary on Torah. So you go to the part where they're commenting on Exodus and page 43a, and I guess they have this hierarchy. But I'm not familiar with the hierarchy. Alan.
So looking at these titles, I have to ask the question, were these words or names ever used as Hebrew names for individuals?
You're talking about
any of those? In other words, it could be I can imagine the child being named with one of those in a positive way about connecting to angels.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really sorry we don't have our native Israeli here, because I have not heard of any of these names.
No, me neither. Okay, that just went through my mind. Not that important. Thank you.
And sometimes Hebrew names surprise me. Sonia has a cousin named Delilah, which is a Hebrew way of saying Delilah. And it sort of shocks and astounds me that anyone would name their child Delilah. I mean, Delilah doesn't get a good rap in the Bible, but it's not an unusual name. So go figure. I really.
What I find amazing is that there are so many people that have been named after archangels.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's a very good point, including me. So Michael.
Mikhail, yeah.
Yeah, is for a long time was the most common name, certainly in the U.S. I'm for many years given to boys, and I would say these days we're starting to see lots of Gabriels also. I don't run across many Uriels, but I bet we're seeing more Raphaels. But I really don't know.
Yeah, well, a lot more Raphaels, I think, in some of the more Latinesque countries.
Yeah, and of course
Same with Uriel.
Same with Uriel, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, and Uri. Yeah, so that's a very good point, because Uri is a very common Hebrew name, and it's probably short for Uriel, as an Israeli name. Yeah, so it is interesting, but these are named angels, so the names are picked up. In fact, I had a minor issue in Hebrew school. When they wanted to call me by a Hebrew name, they just called me Michael for Michael. And then when it was coming time to be ordained, I had to decide what I want to put on my ordination certificate, because my parents never gave me the name Michael. In fact, I don't know that they ever really named me, but my grandmother always said I was named after her father, whose name was Moshe. So as my rabbinic name and on my ordination certificate, and when I sign my name as a rabbi, I always sign it as Moshe. I think
it's good to be Moses.
Yes, it's good to be Moses. Not
You,
bad.
you don't have anything.
That
You know who you should really. It's probably too late
Hold
now.
on a second. Jerry, go ahehe, then Stephen.
I don't know if this was a Yiddish way, but my mother had a friend, Moshe, but he used to be called by his mother Moishe.
Yeah, it's just it can be a diminutive or a Yiddishization.
Yeah.
So there are Yiddish names. Sometimes they're just the sort of the Ashkenazi way of pronouncing it, like Moishi. I had a cousin named Moishi. And then sometimes you will have someone whose Hebrew name is Tzvi, which means a deer, and the Yiddish name will be Heschel or Hirsch, because the Yiddish word for deer is Hirsch. So again, when one of my major jobs, believe it or not, is, and Bethany can attest to this, and others, Cindy, is working with people who want to adopt a Hebrew name and exploring Hebrew names. And I am never more than a few feet away from this book. When I had a pulpit, I would keep one copy in the office and one copy at home, because this is a subject that would come up all the time. Let's talk a little bit. Well, I think I'll read a little bit about liturgy, and then we'll close with the song. And it's not going to be one of my songs, to your great relief. On returning home from services on Friday night, the eve of Shabbat, or at the dinner table before dinner Friday night, it's customary in Orthodox Judaism and conservative Judaism to bring in the Sabbath with a traditional hymn that mentions angels. And I think I played this last time. Shalom Aleichem Malachei HaSharet. Peace be unto you. Malachei HaSharet, often called ministering angels or angels of service. Malachei Elyon, angels of the Most High. Mi Melech Malachei HaMalachi, from the King of Kings. You see the word Melech 3 times in this line. Mi Melech, from the King. Malachei, the King of. Malach HaMalachim, the King of Kings. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is a rabbinic name, Talmudic reference to God. Before going to sleep, many Jews recite a traditional prayer naming the 4 archangels. To my right, Michael, and to my left, Gabriel, before me, Uriel, and behind me, Raphael, and over my head, God's Shekhinah, the presence of God, which interacts with earth. And I think in the song, they call the Shekhinah El, meaning the presence of God. On the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah, it's customary to call all the boys, and in some synagogues, all the children, to the Torah reading, and for the whole congregation to recite a verse from Jacob's blessing to Ephraim and Manasseh. May the angel who redeems me from evil bless the children, and let my name be named in them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them flourish like fish for the multitude in the midst of the land.
Question.
Yes.
The 4 names that you just mentioned in the first paragraph, is it Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael?
Yes.
What is significant about the letters E-L at the end?
Oh, a very good question. El is a word for God. So Michael is who is like God. Gabriel is the strength of God. Uriel is the light of God. And Raphael is the healing of God.
So the word E-L, or the letters E-L, which is the word L, is God.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's expanded in
the
Hebrew.
Old names of God. That's one of the first names of God.
Yeah, so it's expanded in Hebrew to Elohim, Elohai, and so on. And also, I mentioned last week, in the Superman context, which are written by 2 Jews, we have Jor-El and Kal-El, and I have no doubt that they were influenced by this same idea. I am going to stop share, and we're going to go to a song. B'Shem Hashem.
The Moyle.
I'm sorry?
In terms of this thing about your Hebrew name, have you considered asking the Moyle who circumcised you?
I am hoping the Moyle was significantly older than I am.
You think that guy's still around, Stephen?
Yeah, it was a bit of a joke. But and also, for real though, my mother actually, we had a question on my Hebrew name. My mother found something where the Moyle wrote it down at the time, and she held on to the thing, and I've actually still got it, this 50-year-old piece of paper from my breast that has my Hebrew name written by the Moyle. So that's how we know for sure.
Yeah. And I have never seen a circumcision certificate. I presume that I was circumcised by a Moyle, but I'm actually not certain of that. My parents weren't terribly observant. I'm sorry.
You are certain whether or not you're circumcised. You're just not certain whether it was a Moyle.
I'm certain I was circumcised. and I'm not willing to prove it.
I'll ask Sonia.
But I will tell a story that when my son's circumcision came up, my son was born on June 27th, and the 8th day was, I think I've told this story, the 8th day is July 4th. And we were living in central Connecticut, where there weren't a tremendous number of Jews and Mohalim. And so we had trouble finding a mohel. And we found a new mohel, and he showed up at our front door, and my mother opened the door, and the mohel, I swear to God, was cross-eyed. And, and my mother left and didn't come back until the thing was over. The guy was actually very good, and he actually became a major storyteller in Israel. His name was Pinchas Kron, Pesach Kron. And he has books, and he compiles legends, and he became a senior mohel. And he did a great job. I often say we still hear about compliments on his work, but that's not literally true. But I will say, and this, again, won't surprise those of you who know me reasonably well, that when my son would come home from college, he would come home for July 4th. So, but typically he wouldn't make it on his birthday, but we would celebrate his bris day. And we would have a candle on the cake. And instead of blowing it out, yes, you guessed it, we would cut off the top. So you may not ever want to come and study with me again. Okay, so I am going to share screen. Here we go. And I think this will work. I'm going to start playing, and let me know. Hear it?
God has sent surrounding you the angels of Israel. On your right is Michael, on your left Gabriel. Before you stands Uriel, behind you Raphael. Above your head his glory rests, Shekhinah. Say
if you know on Google and look for B'Shem Hashem, you will see lots of different renditions of this song. It's beautiful. I don't know who who's responsible for the music. I do use this in my rabbi's manual. There is a blessing that I use when someone is dying and on their deathbed, and in connection with a prayer for a peaceful passage. And I do find the idea that we are surrounded by 4 angels on our 4 sides and the presence of God above us, a beautiful and comforting image. I don't take it literally, but I do find it beautiful and comforting. And I always quote one of my teachers, maybe it's Harold Kushner, that said, just because something is comforting doesn't mean it's not true. So on that comforting note, I will wish you a good evening.
Have a good trip next week.
And
have a great trip and don't hurt yourself.
It's that, yeah, I'm not going skiing. Been there, done that. I have lifelong scars from Montana and skiing. And as you know, I've referenced, and it'll be in the reminder I sent out tonight, we are not having a class next week on Wednesday, and also not next week on Monday. The class in 2 weeks on Wednesday, we're going to look at the talit and the different traditions and customs for tying the tzitzit and mystical interpretations of the way the knots are tied. I think it's interesting.
So your first class is 2 weeks from tonight?
Well, it'll be 2 weeks from last Monday.
There will be a class.
There will be a class on February, Monday, February 12th on Job, and Valentine's Day, it's Valentine's Day, February.
Yeah,
14th. It's the 14th.
Lincoln's birthday is
Don't
the
tell
12th.
Sonia, I didn't know when Valentine's Day. Yeah, so we are having a class that night, unless there's just an outcry of.
How appropriate to be angels for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, but we're not going to do that.
I know.
I probably ought to talk about cherubs, but I won't.
But what is the name of that song you played?
It's B'Shem Hashem.
B'Shem.
Yeah, it actually took me a while
Like
to find it.
shared with the
No, B'Shem means in the name of Hashem. B'Shem. Shem means name.
What's the B?
With a B, I'll share screen briefly again. You can see it. I think you can see that up there. Shem means name. Shem
right there
means in the name, and Hashem the name. And it's because unless we're praying, traditional Jews don't use the word Adonai even to represent God. They will just use the word Hashem to represent Yud He Vav He. So yeah, you can search, and I'm sure you'll find beautiful renditions of it. Okay, all have a good evening, and stay dry.
Bye.
I've got a question for you. That's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay.
Let me stop sharing.